Heard about the Hario W60 and want to get an idea for what it's all about? Well then stay tuned. Hey everyone, back in March, the Japanese brewing devices company Hario released their new model called the W60. This is a new brewing device that was created in conjunction with 2013 World Barista Championship Pete Licata. This new brewer builds on the design and success of the company's V60 dripper by giving it a more bulbous shape, deeper venturi ribbing, and the addition of a rubber and mesh flat-bottom brew basket. With this new brewer, you can brew coffee with just a mesh filter, paper filter, or a combination of both. According to the official Hario video, Pete wanted to address flatbed brewing, which a number of people believe to have a superior advantage over conical brewers because of its even and consistent bed of coffee. But in order to do this, they had to address three criteria: the right mesh, the right amount of surface area, and the right structure. This means the W60 is physically larger than the V60 with a teacup shape to accommodate the flat bottom mesh basket. But since it also needed to fit the current V60 paper filter, the ribbing is taller to make up for the space, which does theoretically give more space between the paper and the sidewalls to give better water flow. The design allows for three basic brewing methods: paper filter only, mesh basket only, and a combination of the two with their respective brew times. 2 minutes 15 seconds to 2 minutes 45 seconds for just the paper filter, 3 minutes to 3.5 minutes with just the mesh basket, or 4 to 4.5 minutes with a hybrid of both. The problem is that it's just not available here in the West. At the time of making this video, the W60 is only available in Taiwan and South Korea. But I'm sure at some point Hario USA will get their act together and bring the W60 here to the United States. And with prices running between $32 to $44 US, it's not terribly expensive. Which means that since I'm not flying anywhere in the world at the moment, and I haven't asked anyone to send me one, I don't have one to show you. But I thought we'd at least explore the possibilities of what the W60 can bring to the table. To do this, we're going to take a typical conical V60 brewer, and we're going to pair it with mesh baskets and see what happens. To do this, I've got mesh baskets with us. First, we have this plastic and polyester mesh basket. Well, I don't remember where I got it from, but it's got that flat bottom, so it should simulate the W60 well enough. But we wanted to know a little bit more behind what Pete was thinking when developing this W60. So in the Facebook group, I Love Coffee, Pete responds, "I personally don't care for flat bottom paper filter in small-scale brews. The flutes trap a lot of the grinds, and rinsing them results in bypassing the filter for a lot of people. You lose some potential for the brew, and I find that I don't prefer the flavor for the most part. Since Hario already makes great filter paper, we focus on making a method that gives the ability to brew evenly with that paper rather than trying to reinvent it. Also, it opens tons of opportunity to experiment with hybrid techniques." All right, so that's pretty much what Pete's doing, but since we don't have the W60, we are going to use these items just to give us an idea of what kind of things we can expect when the W60 finally makes it to our shores. One of the concerns I have with metal filters is that they just are not able to get as fine a perforation as a paper filter, meaning that you're always going to have greater resistance to the water flow with a paper filter. So you always have to compensate for the comparative coarseness of the mesh filter by using a finer grind. I don't necessarily know if that's a bad thing, but it's something to bear in mind as you experiment with mesh or metal type filters for any kind of brewing method. So for this experiment, we're going to use a coffee from the famous Tim Wendelboe. This is the Fahem from Ethiopia. It's using Arabica varietal 74110 and 74118, produced by Mohamed Lalo in Atago Limoseka, Ethiopia. And it's a wash process coffee that's going to give us notes of rhubarb, tropical fruit, and floral notes. The reason I selected this coffee, other than the fact that Tim is one of the World Barista Champions, is that Tim is pretty much one of the leading guys in the world for light roasted coffee. And since so many people are really into light roasted coffee, especially for this V60 type of brewing, I thought it'd be a great one to go with for this test. All right, so we're going to use 24 grams of pre-ground coffee with 350 milliliters of water to make 12-ounce brew of the coffee. And for this particular, we're going to follow along with Pete's combo idea of using both the basket and the paper filter, and we're going to use it in the V60 because, well, that's all we have. This is a really cheap plastic and polyester mesh filter that I found somewhere out there, and the reason I'm going to use it because it does have the flat bottom. It looks like the flat bottom is bigger than the one that's in the W60, and it doesn't really fit terribly well inside the V60 itself. So it's just kind of going to sit here. And the bet is that whatever comes through the sidewalls will still have enough space to slide down the side because of the ribbing of the V60. And everything should give us a reasonable interpretation of what we could expect. So we're going to add our paper filter, the basket on top, and then we're going to add our coffee, 24 grams, and we're going to make sure that we are leveling it out so that we're making sure that we're leveling it out, because that's really what all of the enthusiasts for flat bottom brewers rave about, is the consistent brew bed in a flat bottom brewer. And this one's pretty wide, so it's going to give us a lot of spread for the coffee. Now we're going to tare the scale, make sure that it's set to grams. We're going to get our timer, and we're going to begin our timing. So what we're going to do is we got our hot water, and we're going to begin the brew. First, we're going to start off with a quick saturation. 118 grams, that's a bit heavy. Now here's the thing. The problem with the mesh is that the mesh is so coarse compared to paper filter, so it really just flies through. And as you can see already, we've only put 118 grams to wet the coffee, and a lot of that has already flowed to the bottom. And now we're starting to get the drip, and now we're 40 seconds into it. So we're going to continue to add, trying to keep the saturation of the coffee. I'm going to stop there and just let the saturation go, right? I guess we'll do for this we'll try a stepped method where we're going to look at stepping the coffee or adding the water in increments. And as you can, I don't know if you can see it well, but the detail is that the mesh filter on the bottom, the frame, the plastic frame, I'm really just pouring to the edge of the frame, so it's not flowing, it's just enough to wet the coffee, but not enough to go over the sides and out the mesh on the sides. I could add a lot more, but I'm already at 222 grams of water and at a min 36. So the brew itself feels like it's going super fast, which does have me a bit concerned. Now we're at 263 grams, and we're at 2 minutes, 5 seconds. So we're really only 100 grams away from our total volume. 300 grams now, we're rolling at 2 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 seconds. We're going to peek in here. It's still coming through. There's, as you can see, you might be able to see, I can't really pull it away without, losing some of the coffee, but it is filter, the paper filter is slowing down the brew as it's coming through the paper at the bottom of the cone. So now we're at 250. I'm going to add the last 50 grams. Or maybe not. 333.6 grams of water. We're still rolling. 3 minutes, 5, 6, 7. So actually, it looks like we're still okay with time-wise. I'm going to finish it off with the last remaining. There we are, 350. All right, 350, and we're flowing. Let me pull this away. So as you can see here at the bottom of the conical, we're still flowing. We're running it. We're now past 4 minutes, and there's still coffee in the paper filter. Now, this is one of the problems, I think, with separating your coffees like this, is that in the mesh filter, only the fine sediments will get through, which then clogs the paper filter much quicker, because typically these fine particles of coffee are suspended within the coffee bed in a normal brew cycle. So you're getting these long extended brew times. All right, we're just going to leave this little bit here. left in the... All right, now we've got our brew. Comparatively, it looks pretty light. So it does have floral aromatics. It smells pretty good. So you got a total brew time, probably about 5 minutes, which I think is pretty long. For this, we're using a standard medium grind that we would use for our normal pour-overs. All right, so perhaps you might want to go to something a little bit more medium coarse to get a faster brew time. So let's give it a try. So here's the thing. This coffee feels thin. It feels underdeveloped. Like there's just not enough body. There's just not enough oomph. It's light. It's delicate. Very tea-like. And this is actually a coffee that I've been drinking quite a bit lately. So it's not quite the same. What makes me curious, though, is to see how does this coffee compare when it's brewed with another popular hybrid device called the Abid Clever. The Abid Clever brewer is an immersion hybrid brewer, meaning that we immerse the coffee just like a French press and then filter it like a pour-over. So it's a little bit different than the W60 in that respect, where the W60 is still a pour-through, pour-over style brewer, where this one is an immersion pour-through brewer. So here, the aromatics have a little bit more development. You're getting a little bit more of the floral, a little bit more berry fruit in the nose, where this is still very light and tea-like. There's definitely deeper and greater complexity. It's still a very light coffee, juicy. There's some juiciness on the palate. Here I would say that the juiciness from the mock-up of the W60 is relatively the same, the juiciness, the acidity. However, the Clever coffee has a lot more development, a lot more body, and a little more physicality on the palate. That just makes it a lot more enjoyable to drink. The W60 clone is very much a lighter-bodied, more tea-like kind of coffee than the Fahem in the Clever. Now, just to note, I'm using the same grind settings for both coffees, same quantities of both coffee and water, so that it's somewhat identical. Now, you can use this information, hopefully, to figure out, okay, how would we get more body out of the W60 approach? Like Pete says, you want to grind finer in order to get more resistance from the coffee so that there's greater extraction and brew development. Because pretty much once it flows through the mesh and the coffee, there's really no more development happening. It's just getting filtered through the paper. So what does that mean for the W60? Is it a great brewer? Is it not a great brewer? Should you buy one? Well, that remains to be seen. Like right now, we're just mimicking the idea of the W60 with their combination brewer. It seems like an interesting way to go. When I finally get the chance to get the W60 in my hands, I'll be sure to produce another video here for you to see and talk more about how to use it, maybe how to get really more out of it. But I think it's got some interesting possibilities, but really, do you need to do anything more than this? Well, that remains to be seen. So while I can't say that the idea of the W60 necessarily replaces any particular brewer, I'm interested in trying one, but if you'd like to try for yourself and see what it's all about, grab your V60 and then go out there and find one of these baskets, and that'll give you the chance to experiment with the ideals of the V60, and then when it finally comes out, you'll just be ahead of the curve. All right, so hopefully that helps you with something. I hope you find value in that. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate you taking the time today. See you next time.